I want the people to know about the prevalence of diabetes and how it's decreased with the whole food plant-based diet. So I am constantly doing research, and I'm referring right now to a note from Dr. Michael Greger, the author of How Not to Die. I love all of his books.
A very fitting title.
So the prevalence of diabetes, and we're talking about the nutritional aspect here. So a semi-vegetarian decreases their prevalence of being diagnosed or dying with diabetes by 28%. A pesco-vegetarian decreases their prevalence by 51%. A vegetarian, meaning they consume no meat products but dairy, they decrease theirs by an additional 10%, so at 61%. And an individual who eats a vegan diet decreases their prevalence of being diagnosed and dying from diabetes by nearly 80%. I have said before, a vegan diet is different from a whole food plant-based diet. And again, I'm going to explain that a vegan diet still can be very high in sugar, high in oil, processed food. A vegan diet is generally highly processed. And so I encourage not just a vegan diet, but a whole food plant-based diet. Can you imagine if you cut out all of those extra things at 80% of a decreased prevalence for a diagnosis of diabetes? You're almost over 90%.
And I know now the people listening, some people are pulling back. They're getting a little bit afraid. You were on a radio show, and we'll get into this in just a second, but you were on a radio show this past Sunday, and the host of the show, all in good fun, referred to you as a bit of a party pooper. Can you express to the people how truly you're not trying to take away what people consider fun and what brings them joy? You know, what do you mean you want to take away my red meat and my ice cream and my dairy? Why do you want to ruin all of the fun? Can you maybe shed some light on how you're trying to give people their full life back rather than take anything away by encouraging this type of lifestyle?
Think about, and first I would like to say, I was not always a whole food plant-based individual. I ate meat. I didn't eat a lot of it, but I still ate meat. I ate more sugar than anything. I consumed a ton of sugar. So I know, I understand sugar is highly addictive. The saturated fats in meats and oils are clogging our arteries. It makes us tired. Think about when you eat a good holiday meal or celebratory meal and how you feel after you've eaten that plate of turkey, dressing, macaroni and cheese, greens, all filled with meat, oils, fat, sugar. You're not ready to go out and exercise or run. You want to sit down in your most comfy spot and take a nap.
There's been many Thanksgivings where I couldn't even make it to Black Friday tramp eating.
And that's because of how that type of food affects our body. Now, when you eat a whole food plant-based diet, and our slogan is live an intentional life of vitality through nutrition. Vitality means energy. It means longevity. It means joy and happiness. When you eat a whole food plant-based diet, it feeds your body so that you are energetic, so that you can do the things that bring you joy and happiness, so that you are uplifted. Because the sugar is not taking over your mind. You're feeding your brain the right things so that it can function right, so that your neurons fire appropriately. When you're eating a lot of sugar, which is an excitotoxin, your neurons are firing improperly.
I would just like to say, and I'll speak for myself here, but I feel that I am also going to be speaking for plenty of our listeners who may, like myself, full transparency, perhaps does not have the best relationship with food and their nutrition. Sometimes it is difficult for me to connect fullness or satisfaction with anything besides that feeling you just described of I can feel it sitting in my stomach and all I can do is go sit on the couch, unbutton my pants and lay back. If I don't feel that in my belly, sometimes I almost feel confused. Like, am I full? Have I eaten enough? What is this feeling? So my question to you is how do we change the way people think and feel about food? How do we get people in the mindset where you shouldn't feel like a brick, even after you've eaten a high calorie nutritional meal, you shouldn't feel like you've got to fall over and just stay there until all the food digests. You should be able to stand up and go for a walk or go exercise or go play. How do we correct people's relationship with food and fullness and satisfaction?
Our relationship with food is a very deep one. And I'll give you a little history to help you understand this a little bit. When I was younger, I didn't have a lot of access to food. And many times I was hungry. I definitely didn't have a lot of access to the sweeter things, candy, the junk, potato chips, and all of that. So that is a part of the reason why I did not have a great relationship with food and why I did end up being diagnosed with prediabetes, because now I was able to get the access to it. I can buy whatever I wanted whenever I want it. So it's a mindset thing. It's a psychological thing. So as a child, I didn't get to eat McDonald's all the time. I didn't get to eat my favorite Swedish fish and red vines all the time. But as an adult, when I could buy my own things, all of those things that I was deprived of, those were the things I ran to. Those were the things I desired. So we each have our own relationship with food, but it is a psychological thing. We run to food to feel better when we are down. A lot of times we just eat food when we're bored. And I've been in all of those places. So it's a learning process. It's not going to happen overnight. You'll have to learn and listen to your body. You should not feel like a brick after you eat. Your stomach should not hurt after you eat, and you should not immediately have to go evacuate after you eat. All of those things let you know that you've eaten the wrong thing or you've eaten too much. And if you are not energized and more awake after you've eaten food, you're eating the wrong thing. So that being said, again, you should not have to do anything negative. Your stomach should not hurt. You should not feel tired, and you should not have to immediately evacuate your bowels after you have a meal. But you should feel energized. You should feel more awake, and you should feel full because your body is using the nutrients properly.
How do we connect ourselves sort of back to nature, back to that labelless eating that you were bringing up earlier? A lot of times I hear people associate things like salads, fruits, and vegetable with like being for the birds. Like only animals should be eating things that grow off of trees or out of the ground, and we should be eating those animals. Or processed. It seems like we are so, it's almost like people are afraid of something that hasn't been through a factory and put into a cardboard or plastic box. What is that?
Personally, I think it's advertising. You don't see a lot of advertising of have a fresh salad, grow your own garden, eat your green beans. You know, you don't see that advertising. The advertising that you see is for highly processed food that is very quick to prepare, or you can eat in an instant food. Whole food is not instant food. It can be. I go out to my garden frequently and just pluck tomatoes off the plant and eat them, or pull lettuce out of the garden. And if it's not dirty, I will eat it right out of the garden. But that's not convenient for everybody. So when we talk about processed food and packaged food, that's more convenient. We live in this, you've heard it over and over, microwave world. So everything is done very quickly. And unfortunately, people want everything quickly. They don't want to prepare food or learn to grow food, or even, and this is my opinion, or even understand how whole food would be beneficial.
That is an excellent answer. And the second you said that, advertising, marketing, the spark, the light bulb went off in my head, and I go, yeah, that makes so much sense. What I was going to go to next was one of those final points you were making. You were spot on again, and something I've experienced and my partner has experienced. And also I just like to add that I think it's difficult for a lot of people to think about food until they're hungry. And then once you're hungry, a lot of the times it's too late. You know, you don't have time to prepare anymore. Now you just need to feed, which will get you to, thinking in your head, all right, well, what's the quickest thing? McDonald's, something I can put in the microwave or in the air fryer for 5 minutes.
So Sean, you're right. You made the point right there. And that's a great point. You're already hungry by the time you think about food when you should never allow yourself to get hungry. A healthy diet, and most people, because we do live in a world where everybody is overweight, most overweight people feel like, oh, they should only eat once a day, or they should only eat certain things. Again, when you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, you can eat as much as you want. And you should be eating 3 full meals a day and at least 2 to 3 snacks a day. And yes, you can eat 5 to 6 times a day and still maintain a healthy weight. I've been doing it for the last several years. You should not wait until you're hungry. It's already too late. And so now your body has went into survival mode. As soon as you feel your stomach growling, now your body is increasing that blood sugar to help you survive. Another point I didn't make, Sean, when you talked about the difference between processed food and whole food, is the expense. Being able to eat at the fast food restaurants or get packaged food is much cheaper in some instances than eating a whole food plant-based diet, especially now with all of the environmental things we have to worry about, especially if you're eating an organic plant-based diet. It can be a little more expensive. To that, I say, what is your life worth? I want to talk about a little bit about the financial impact of diabetes and diabetes-related health complications. Diabetes, and I don't think I said this at the beginning, is the 7th leading cause of death in the U.S. It costs over $320 billion each year to treat diabetes, and lost work and wages. And people who are diagnosed with diabetes have 2 times the medical expenses than people without diabetes. According to Dr. Rita Kalani et al., 1 in every 4 U.S. healthcare dollars goes toward caring for an individual with diabetes. So diabetes itself is an expensive disease. Any lifestyle illness is a very expensive disease. And so then I ask the question, can you afford to live with diabetes or any other lifestyle illness? A couple of other scary facts about diabetes. We talked about more than a million of our children being diagnosed with diabetes, but African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, and Asian Americans are more likely than any other race to develop type 2 diabetes. Cardiovascular disease, which we talked about earlier, is the primary cause of death from diabetes. And the number of people continue to rise. So I was sharing with our producer, Sean, right as we got ready to start the show, about the increasing numbers of diabetes. And Dr. Michael Greger noted that from 1990 to 2014, the number of individuals diagnosed with diabetes had tripled. From 2014 to today, that number has doubled. So in 24 years, the prevalence of diabetes tripled. And in a matter of 7 years, it has doubled.
That is horrifying. What's going on?
Absolutely horrifying. And as we know, this world that we live in, we talked about advertising. Advertising makes the difference in how we live, how we move, how we work in our environments. So those scary numbers are a part of what's happening in the world. Again, as I stated earlier, nobody is advertising, eat your greens, eat your colors, eat fresh food. All of your advertising is fast food, quick food. And not only that, anywhere you go, you are going to see a fast food restaurant or a convenience store. It's very rare that you're going to find a vegan or whole food plant-based restaurant. So that's where these numbers come from, as well as the lack of knowledge. And that's why Live in Truth is here, so that we can share this knowledge so that people can make changes to live longer lives.
Just before we move on, I just want to talk a little bit more about the financial impact of living with specifically diabetes. But like you said, any chronic illness in America, at least, it's very expensive. So imagine I'm a client of yours. What is your advice on how I can combat the financial hurdles in front of me? I'm not a millionaire. I'm spending the bulk of my money in my medical bills or in my medicine. Say I've got a family, so I certainly can't afford to die. And I'm not so sure that I can afford to live. Maybe I don't live in a place with a lot of yard space where I'm able to garden. So what is your genuine advice to someone dealing with something like this on